Welcome to Fandomentals as we talk with special guest Tom Nguyen. Hey, how's it going?
Yo.
Intro, title sequence.
Thanks.
That's pretty
That,
fancy.
we're super proud of it. So that's something we just
This
recently
is like
had redone, and yeah, the logo and
this
stuff
is
was
high
actually.
production.
Thanks. Taya
Hey.
actually came up with that logo and stuff, and then we had a friend of ours that does our intro building, and he kind of fine tunes all of our graphics and stuff, and he built that.
I
So
drew it up on a whiteboard and I was like, this is what I want.
yeah,
Can we do this?
he brought it to
So,
life.
yeah.
Oh, that's great. I mean, I've been on all types of interviews and podcasts, so that it's always cool to see that type of stuff. I mean, I've been on interviews where, like, like it seems like the interviewer was just doing it from his mom's basement or something like
Oh yeah,
that, with
yeah.
no lighting and nothing. It's just, but no judgment. It's
Right,
We
just
all
right,
got to
right.
start
takes all
somewhere.
types of
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
productions. Exactly,
Well,
exactly.
thank you for taking your time out and joining us to do this with us. Let Tay, you want to kick
Thanks
us
for
off
having
with
me.
the first question?
Absolutely. One of the things that I looked at on your Instagram is that you also do photography. So I actually wanted to know what came first, your drawing or your photography?
So my drawing came first. I've been drawing as long as I can remember. The photography was just kind of something that I've always enjoyed and admired growing up. Being a visual guy, of course, being an artist, you appreciate anything that's visually beautiful. And even before I got into photography, I was always buying photography magazines just to look at the pictures and really fascinated by how cameras can, anyone has the ability to buy a camera, but to be able to create with it, to use the camera
Mm-hmm.
as a proper
Mm.
tool.
Right. To capture
So
the
that was my
essence that
kind of,
you're looking for. Yeah.
yeah, so that was kind of like my first foray, and there's other similarities I can get into as far as photography and drawing. But interestingly enough, let me try to think here because I want to be accurate with this. I remember there was a period in my career where I was doing a lot of painting, and the painting would be of models, like you see the classic pinup girls,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
from like the 50s and 60s, and just really like airbrush and stuff. I still have my airbrush somewhere. But I really got into that for a while, and for the short, intense time I was really into it, I got pretty decent recognition for it. Um, and part of that whole thing involved me having to use some people I know and like as models.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just take these very crude photos of them just as reference, and if people know how artists work, especially if you want to create realism, you don't take photos just to trace what you see and copy exactly, but you kind of use it as a helper, as a guide, just to make sure
Yeah.
you get things right. Because as an artist, you still want to exaggerate things and make certain parts up a little bit to give it the most striking image that you can finish with. So I started doing that, and then I ended up buying, I think in 2008 or 2007, I bought like my first little DSLR camera, which, for those who don't know, it stands for digital single lens reflex. It's like a step up from a point and shoot camera.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I got that with two lenses, but I still wasn't a photographer. I never used the camera in a professional technical sense. I just still use it to take snapshots.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until like one of my models at the time um, kind of challenged me and said, "Hey," these were almost her exact words. "Hey, you do that Photoshop, don't you? Can you take some, like professional pictures of me?" And I knew what she meant. She meant that I had a camera and I worked with models and I did paintings and stuff. And when someone puts me on the spot like that, it's very hard for me to turn down a challenge. And in a way, my career has been kind of like that. When I'm presented with a deadline or a new type of drawing project,
Yeah.
I'll just confidently accept it. And even if I haven't done it before, I'll do it just because I have too much pride to tell them I don't know how to do it, or I can't do it. So I did, and you know, I bought like a little reflector, and I started reading forums. I never, you know, like took any in-person like classes or anything. I mean, I looked up a few videos and forums and stuff, but basically just taught myself how to use a camera that I spent a lot of money on that's being used as a point and shoot, not in the way that it should be used. I've never used it
Mm.
to its full potential. So I actually started the technical side of lighting, which wasn't hard for me as an artist to grasp because we're always conscientious of lighting. It's just using a different tool. Instead of using paintbrushes and pens and pencils, I'm just using a camera. So
Hmm.
I learned how I bought some lights and I learned how to set up. I used soft boxes and umbrellas, and
Mm.
yeah, I basically taught myself how to get into photography. And then from there, um, I just started getting booked for more shoots, not just models, but family portraits, pets. I think my big breakthrough was that I asked a friend who was a bodybuilder um, to pose for me, you know, and I said, well, I think I want to try taking do a photo shoot of a bodybuilder. The reason being is because I used to be one. I used to compete way back in like 2002,
Okay.
a long time ago. I mean, I don't look like it now, but you know, my my hook was that trust me to take your picture. I'll do an entire photo shoot. I'll do your portfolio. I won't even charge you. Um, you know, and just give me the opportunity to photograph your physique because this guy was
Hmm.
ripped, right? And I kind of want to. My pitch was, look, I was a former bodybuilder. I know what poses make you look the best. I know the lighting conditions that will make your muscles pop out and look the best, and that's all it really took. And you know, I believe I still do have that advantage compared to a lot of photographers that do physique photography that don't have that background in competing. So I did. I took some photos of him, and a couple of the photos went viral. You know, like Muscular Development shared it online and
Oh,
everything.
nice.
From there, I started
Wow.
messaging me and booking me to do photo shoots of them right before they competed, when they're in their best shape, because they want
Hmm.
to kind of preserve that moment and,
Mm.
you know, their hard work. So I did that for a while, and nowadays it's you know, I've done like senior portraits. I've done I just shoot birds. I'm like an old guy now. I just sit out in the front and just look for birds, and I just take pictures of birds. If you follow any of my social media, occasionally I'll take pictures of my dog and birds. It's not
Hmm.
that I've stopped taking pictures of models. I still do quite a bit, or I still have a huge backlog that I haven't even shown yet, just from past photo shoots. But
Nice.
photography is just a nice break from art. You know, if I'm burnt out on drawing and stuff, this is
Mm.
still creative and visual, but it's a different set of tools. And you know,
Right.
I think they balance each other out. So,
Nice. So, what was the moment you knew you wanted to be a comic artist, and like, how did you break into the industry?
so the moment that I really knew I wanted to do it was my early teen years. And yeah, I'd always been drawing. Growing up, I'd always been the class artist. I was always, for lack of better terms, the best
Mm-hmm.
artist. You know, in my class, or you know, people would go to me to do their homework assignment or draw them something. But as far as comic books, I mean, my first love was Spider-Man when I was a kid. That's what got me into drawing when I was like 3 or 4 years old. The cartoon on TV was called Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Mm-hmm.
So
Hmm.
I always was into superhero stuff. And then I fell in love with Superman, Christopher Reeve. And then I went through a phase where I was drawing He-Man, and then
And the Masters of the
Transformers. So
Universe.
yep. So early on, I was already into all that stuff.
Right.
The stuff that's like popular now, that's making a comeback from the 80s, you know, the vintage stuff. I mean, that
Yeah.
Hmm.
I grew up with that. So, and then I veer off and started doing other things like, you know, comic strips, cartoons. I messed around with that style. But to me, it wasn't as challenging as drawing comic books, because
Mm.
comic books, while still kind of cartoony, was a little more realistic than comic strips. And then I got into messing around with drawing realistic portraits. I remember when I was a kid, I really liked baseball. I still do. And I would try to draw portraits of my favorite baseball players.
Hmm.
So I would, get some practice in that way. But when I really knew was when I got back into comic books. I was always in and out of comic books. It was never really hardcore. But the final time that really bit me was at probably 13 years old. And I picked up some Spider-Man from the store, and it was drawn by Todd McFarlane.
Hmm.
And in fact, I think Tay, let me see your shirt. That looks like a Todd. That's the guy right there, Todd
That's
McFarlane.
awesome.
So the reason why that got my attention was because his style at the time looked unlike anything I had seen before.
Hmm.
There was a very classic way of drawing Spider-Man, or the way Spider-Man was depicted in comic books. And then when Todd came along, I mean, he threw in all these like a million lines of detail, or what we thought was detail at the time. It's just his style, and
Hmm.
the big eyes, and it just blew my mind. And he just was not a traditional comic artist. And from there, I picked up X-Men, just a bunch of Marvel stuff, and Jim Lee was getting hot on X-Men. So yeah, I mean, it was that time when artists were really starting to come onto their own and really make a name for themselves more than they ever had been in the past. And that's when I knew that, look, this is a job. People are doing this as a grown-up job.
Hmm.
So that's when I knew I wanted to be a comic book artist. Now,
Nice.
how I broke in was when I was 15 years old. I visited my elementary school art teacher one day because she was good to me growing up. She really helped foster me drawing.
Hmm.
She was the one that went to my teachers, my homeroom teachers, and said, "Hey, when Tom is done with his homework and you have spare time, can he come down to my art room and draw?" And she taught me a few things on how to observe and look for things in my art. But I kept in touch with her ever since. And I came back at 15, and she says, "Hey, so what are you doing these days? Are you still drawing?" I said, "Yeah, I'm still drawing." She goes, "Well, are you going to do anything with it?" And I said, "I want to be a comic book artist." And then she said, "Really? Well, one of my former students is a comic book artist, is a professional. His name is Doug Mankey, and he works for Dark Horse Comics drawing The Mask. Would
Oh
you like
What?
wow.
to
That's
meet?"
dope.
Yeah. And I said, "Yeah." So she set up a meeting time for me to meet Doug, and I brought my artwork, and he brought his, and that session just blew my mind. He showed me like what tools he used. He looked at my stuff. He told me, he critiqued it, told me what I needed to work on, and we were just getting to know each other and telling stories and everything. And I was just blown away. It was the most meaningful meeting in my life, really. Um, and yeah, Doug and I stayed in touch, and he eventually got work at DC Comics. And then I was still 19 at the time. Yeah. So when he was getting a gig at DC Comics on a new title that he co-created called Major Bummer,
Hmm.
with writer John Arcudi, who was the writer on The Mask at Dark Horse Comics. So they came over to DC together. Doug would be penciler, but they still needed an inker. Now, for those who don't know, there's the comic book is put together assembly line style. You have the writer, you have the penciler, you have the inker, the colorist, the letterist, the editor, and we all work as a team to put the book together on time every month. So I remember I was always taking Doug's advice from that first meeting at age 15. So we had stayed in contact. We became friends, and I learned off of him for 4 years, really intently, just like listening to everything he said, practicing everything he said. And when the opportunity came up at DC Comics, where he and John needed an inker for their book, Major Bummer, which is a comedic superhero book at the time, um, I said, "Yeah, I'll try out for it." So essentially, I did. I tried out and I got the job. Long story short,
Nice.
that's how I broke in. I broke in age 19. I dropped out of college and started my comic book career that way. So I was the guy that I met, my first professional that I met at age 15. I ended up being his art partner, and we were art team for years to come, for the better half of my better part of the first half of my career.
Wow, that's
I
wild.
mean, we went from Major Bummer to, we worked on Superman, the Man of Steel, to Justice League, to Batman, to Green Lantern, and yeah. Um, we're no longer a team,
Hmm.
but we're still close friends. In fact, I was just texting with him yesterday because he's contributing some artwork to my creator-owned comic book that we'll talk about, I'm sure, later.
Okay.
So yeah,
Cool.
it's been a wild ride. I can't believe I think this year will be let's see, 1996. This December will be my 29th year in the industry.
Nice. That's pretty crazy to
Wow.
Crazy,
think
I've
that
been in
like
the
you've been
industry
doing
that
this
long.
right out of high school. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, a lot of people, it's funny because I tell them I'm in the industry almost 30 years, and they say, well, you don't look like you've been in
Yeah.
the industry for 30 years, but I did break in young.
Hmm.
So
So that
for
helped.
Major Bummer, when you said that like you had gotten picked up for it, and you said that there was an inker, pencil, lettering,
Yep,
and a couple of other ones, what did you actually start out as then?
I was an inker.
Okay.
So
And
the
what
main
exactly
the
does
main
Anchor
art
do?
team is so the writer will write a script, we'll pass it on to the penciler, and the penciler will read the script and will basically draw it in pencil.
Hmm.
And the inker's job is to take those pencils. And the joke is they trace over it, but it's a little bit more involved than that. You kind of go over it and you clean it up, and my best description, how I like it described, is you're redrawing it in ink, but
Mm.
you're
Hmm.
enhancing it, you're cleaning it up, and you're making it ready for print. You're
Gotcha.
adding details here where they need to be and textures where you need to be. So you're giving it the final polish. But the penciler and the inker are together the art team. But the penciler has more responsibility than the inker does. So usually the penciler will get the credit, the majority credit,
Gotcha.
understandably. But and I never wanted originally to break in as an inker. I always wanted to break in as a penciler or someone who would just ink my own stuff as a full artist. But
Yeah.
at 19, it was a moment of opportunity.
Right.
Get
Get your
my
foot
foot
in
in
the
the
door.
door,
Yeah,
and become a pro and work my way up to penciler that way. So yeah,
that's great.
that's how I got in.
That's awesome. So whilst perusing your Instagram, I saw that you actually draw people or kids at like cons. And I wanted to know that like if somebody wanted to have you draw them as like a superhero and hasn't seen you at a con, how would they get that like to get that from you? Is there a way for them to like reach out to
Ye-
you or?
Yeah, usually people just reach out to me on my social media. They'll
Mhm.
just message me. Whether that's email or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and then they'll just book me like any other customer and say, can you draw? Are you able to do this? How much do you charge? And then we'll just kind of go back and forth. Is that, well,
Mhm.
do you need it by a certain time? Do you want it black and white, color? How big do you want it? Do you have enough photos to supply me? I mean, I can draw anyone. Uh, so yeah, that's usually how it is. It's nothing too complicated or secretive about how to book a professional artist. Just reach out and ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something we might have to reach out later and do for Fandomentals one day. That'd be kind of cool. Get like you come
Yeah,
up with some kind of
you
hero
you and
complex
every
stuff.
other podcast that wants the logo.
Yeah. Oh no, no, I'm
I've
just
been
talking
asked
about
that
like
before.
drawing us as some kind of heroes, but just I don't know. That'd be kind of
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, I've had that a lot. So yeah, but anytime, just reach out, and we'll work out the details.
Heck yeah. So what advice would you give to an aspiring comic artist trying to break into the industry today?
So to break in today, what would I say? Well, I say the best way. Well, first of all, you'd have to be good enough to break in, and
Right.
leading up to that, I'd say try to just meet somebody in the industry like I did. Meet a professional, because only a professional can give you the right advice.
Hmm.
I mean, a lot of younger people I see, they'll sign up for schools and colleges that teach comic book art. I don't know. I think I think most of it's kind of a scam, but I don't know. I mean, they can teach some good. It depends on the teacher and the
Right.
credentials the teacher has,
Mm-hmm.
But they're out. Generally they're pretty expensive,
Yeah.
Mm.
and some of these schools you have to watch out for, especially the for-profit schools, because they don't really care about fostering or your skill or your
Mm-hmm.
passion. They just kind of want to take your tuition money
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
not really teach you the proper tools to succeed and to get a job in the business, or have that support after you graduate. Then if I could tell you how many people that I've critiqued who were graduates of a comic book program, that I'm looking at it and I just don't have the heart to tell them. It's like, oh man, you wasted this time and money, and you're not ready. You're not even
Right.
close to ready. But find a professional who's in it, who will actually give you practical advice
Mm.
on the next steps to take. And plus, it's free. If you're nice to them, buy them a beer or something like that.
Right.
I'm pretty easy. Just get me like a sugar-free energy drink, or just get me a McDonald's, and I'll critique your portfolio all you want.
So everybody take notes.
Um, yeah, that's fine
That
because I
was
just get a
something that
bunch
I
of
did
free
see.
food.
Yeah.
Right. He starts getting
Yeah.
gift
Well,
cards in the
um,
mail.
oh yeah. Oh, I'll take it too. Yeah, I'm easy. Um, no, but it's find a pro and start to get pointers that way.
Mhm.
And depending on the pro in the industry, everyone has a different story of how they broke in, because how I told you I broke in is obviously not going to be the same way someone else breaks in. Someone else could have just blindly sent in samples to a company and just got hired.
mm-hmm.
So and not every hiring art director or editor works the same way either, but you will have a much clearer idea of a direction once you find a working professional, um, that can tell you, at least you get a peek inside their world, how they work and how they deal on the business end of getting jobs and breaking in.
Sure.
Um, but that's the best way, because I think nowadays, if you just blind send samples to certain companies, they won't even look at it. They might just throw it away.
Oh wow.
It's changed so much since
Right.
my day, when I broke in.
Yeah.
Um, how do you meet a professional? That's probably the next logical question. Uh, the best way is just to go to conventions.
Yeah.
Like where I saw you guys at the show,
That's how we met
stuff
you.
like
Yeah.
that. Exactly. And then I've met several artists there that weekend that showed me their work and asked me questions on a weekend. So that's the easiest way to do it. I mean, it's so popular now. Comic Cons everywhere. I mean, you can find someone or some show every month in some
Right.
Mm-hmm.
given state, and
Yeah.
hopefully it's not too far away from you, and hopefully it's within your state.
Yeah. So one of the things that I saw on your website was that you worked on the Wipeout like TV show. So I wanted to know
Yeah.
exactly what did you do for that? Like, did you draw like what obstacles they were gonna like choose to do, or what did you do? What exactly did you do?
So for that particular show, I was hired to draw some of the background walls. That was the relaunch, season one relaunch of Wipeout, I believe in 2020. I want to say it's the relaunch with John Cena
Mm.
um, as a co-host, and yeah, I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with Wipeout, but it's a
Oh,
fun
I watched
obstacle
it
course
before
show with
yeah.
teams. I think it's the same thing. The relaunch is the same thing as the first version.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's on certain episode. It wasn't every episode, but you'll look in the background. You see these like really like these big walls in the background with
Yeah.
these silly characters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and on one of them, I like squeezed my little dog at the time when she was a puppy in the
Oh.
background. But and I'll do, that's a recurring theme with me when I do like shows, like TV
Mhm.
shows. I'll try to squeeze my little dog in there
That's
somehow during
great.
the seasons. But yeah, for that particular show, I was just hired to draw some of the backgrounds. And then one of the backgrounds was really fun. It was like a goofy wrestling background. Another one was like an 80s aerobic studio background. Another one was like a nightclub bar scene. It's pretty cool.
Mm.
That's neat.
You can find, like on my website, I don't know how many of those I've uploaded because I need to update my website. It's still under construction. But I think some episodes you can see online, some of those very episodes. If not on YouTube, then on the TBS website.
Hmm.
So, what was it like collaborating with writers like Jeff Johns and Greg Rucka? Because you worked with them in the 52 series, right?
Did some 52 and Blackest Night stuff. Now, I never collaborated with them directly
Okay.
because I was the only writer I collaborated with directly during that whole Green Lantern New 52 saga was
Hmm.
Dave Gibbons, who's a co-creator of The Watchmen,
Okay.
which is pretty cool in itself that I got to work with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, those other times were the other artists and pencilers, because the books that I work with Jeff Johns on were ones that I was inker on. I wasn't
Okay.
penciler. I was just penciler on the Dave Gibbons Green Lantern core. But I mean, I would imagine it's a similar process. They
Right.
send a script, you read it, and they trust you to interpret it the best you can. You know,
Hmm.
they'll number the pages 1 to 22. On page 1, this happens. Page 2, this happens. They might break it down and say, okay, so page 1, I want it to be a big splash page, like an opening scene
Okay.
of, like, say, this space or something like that. And then they'll leave it to the artist to draw that as cool as he or she can. And then page 2, okay, now we're going to be on the planet. We're going to zoom in closer. We're going to have 5 panels. On panel 1, we're going to be on the space station. I want these characters talking to each other. On panel 2, I want a close-up of the main character. Got a concerned look on her face. On panel 3, we go back and above down. You know, that's how a writer generally writes, you know,
Okay.
and then the rest is just up to, you know, the artist's imagination.
Right. So do like when they do that, do they, after you draw that, do they have to like look it over and like approve it and make sure there's not any changes they want to make, or is it kind of like a trust factor just because that relation's already built?
Really depends. You know, if you're a new artist, they might have a little more lookovers and notes,
Hmm.
you know, but if you're a seasoned established artist, they leave you alone, you know,
Gotcha.
and the editor might request changes here and there.
Hmm.
If it's a continuity problem, because they're trying to coordinate it with a different book and they want things to like match and be the same, some details to be the same,
Hmm.
especially if it's like a multi-issue series. Um, I would say in some cases, sure, the writer might spot something because after all, it's their script that they wrote,
Hmm.
and say, wait, this is totally wrong. You know, this needs to be redrawn. So
Hmm.
um, I don't think it happens too often, really, because if
Right.
it does, it would slow down production. I mean, to do a comic book a month it's a pretty big undertaking and then very deadline oriented. So we don't have too much time to mess around. But
Right.
you know, that I guess that's why they hire professionals. They call us professionals
Yeah,
because we
that makes sense.
hopefully know what we're doing.
One would hope.
Yes, right.
So we had just talked about the fact that we had all met at the Big River Comic Con, and we actually met at the after party at the Irish pub.
Yep.
So I was wondering, when's the next time you're going to a Comic Con? Do you have anything on your schedule of where somebody can see you or present their artwork to you?
Yeah, so I actually have a schedule published on my social media. I believe on my website too, under appearances. But if you, like, say, go on my Instagram or Facebook or any place else, you should see it pinned
Hmm.
on the top. My next, I mean, it'll list throughout the entire year where I will be at. And
Hmm.
my next show is actually a local show to me. It's at the State Fairgrounds here in Minnesota, and it's a one-day show called Spring Con, and I believe that's June 7th, I want to say. And yeah, it's just a nice one-day show, a nice big location. It's our, you know, traditional show here. And then later in June will be the Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina. Have you heard of that show, Heroes?
Uh-oh.
It's a big show. It's probably one of the best, biggest Comic Cons in the
Really?
nation.
Oh, wow.
There's no celebrities. It's just all comic creators.
Oh,
And it's
nice.
huge. It's a huge art collector market and everything. And it's great. I did it for the first time. I mean, it took me almost 30 years, but I did it for the first time last year.
Wow. I'm
Mhm.
sure
And
there's some great pieces
it
in there
was
too.
it was great. And so I'll be returning this year. And then, yeah, I've got San Diego Comic-Con. We briefly talked about that.
Hmm.
That's in July. Before that, I've got the Fanboy Expo in Knoxville, Tennessee. That's the one I told you that was tried it in Vegas that one year.
Mhm.
Hmm.
That's their biggest show in Tennessee. In August, I think I have Terrificon. That's a nice big one in Connecticut, the best one in Connecticut.
Okay.
And then I think I'm back to Fanboy Expo. At least I've been told. It's not guaranteed. In Orlando in September. And then where else? October, I have Baltimore Comic Con. I heard that's a really great show for artists and everything. No celebrities, just art.
Nice.
Mhm.
And no New York Comic Con. I haven't done that yet. Oh yeah, and then I have a show called SuperCon in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I
Hmm.
believe that's in October. That's a great show. Yeah, and then there's FallCon back in Minnesota. That's at the state fairgrounds again, except it's a 2-day show in the fall. And off the top of my head, that's all I can remember.
That is a
I think that's
lot.
it.
Yeah. Well, I see your socials. Like it seems like almost every week or every other week, it seems
Hey,
like you're there.
my dog's freaking out. My dog heard something in the background. Anyway.
But yeah, it seems like you're on the road quite a bit. That shows. But
Yeah, I have to keep booking them because I've got back taxes I have to pay, so I'm booking as much as I can.
so what was the most challenging project you've worked on, and like what was the challenging part about it?
Well, in recent memory, last October, I was working for the TV show Big Brother on CBS,
Okay.
Mhm.
and they had me do the comic book episode. So for the last 10, 11 years, they've been doing like a comic book specific episode. Back in 2014, I was one of several artists hired for this new kind of experiment thing that they. Are you familiar with Big Brother, the show?
I know what it is. It's not my type of TV to watch, but I know exactly what it is. So
I
Yeah,
watched
it's
a
like
season of it,
Survivor.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it's like Survivor in a house.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Every week they kick someone out, and until
Yep.
they narrow it down to one, and you win money. But part of the whole season is you have to form teams and do challenges against each
Mhm.
other, competitions and stuff. Well, they tried something like a comic book type of competition where they hired some of us to draw the members of the house as comic book superheroes and covers as covers,
Huh.
and just make a big memory game out of it. Well, apparently it blew up. It was so popular that now it's a staple every year. And so last year, October, towards the end of the season, I was the guy that had to draw all 16 members of the house. Well, the deadline was very tight, and I was
Mm.
traveling at the same time, so I had to juggle traveling, doing Comic Cons, and this assignment, which was absolutely crazy. Um, but that was probably in recent memory the most stressful thing I've had to go through, because not only was I not sleeping, I'm talking 4 hours maximum for like a period of weeks
Oh
working on
wow.
this thing, because I was doing Comic Cons too. It was to the point where, remember just a few moments ago I told you I was going to do Baltimore Comic Con in October
Hmm.
Mhm.
for the first time. Well, technically it wasn't my first time going. This won't be my first time. My first time was last October. I was there in Baltimore, but I could not do the show. I had to cancel actually attending the show because I was in my hotel room all weekend drawing this Big Brother project, because the deadline was, my back was against the wall. If I
Oh
had
wow.
gone to
No.
the show, couldn't meet the deadline.
Oh
So
wow.
I
Mhm.
had to, email the organizer, one of the organizers of the show, and apologize profusely. And it was embarrassing because I was already in town. Most people would be like, well, you're already in Baltimore, just do the show. I literally could not. That's how crazy
Yeah.
the deadline was. So, yeah, that was pretty tense. Not sleeping and not being able to do a major show that I was looking forward to doing and seeing some fans and
Right.
stuff. But I got it done. I barely got it done,
Hey, that's what
and
matters.
that's what matters. So Baltimore Comic Con has been very nice. Randy's been very nice. I practically begged him to come back, and I will do whatever it takes to do his show this year. And even if I don't sleep at all,
Right.
I've got to do Baltimore Comic Con this year. They're giving me another shot.
Nice. That's pretty great that they were super understanding. So
Yeah. They're pretty cool. The comics industry is pretty understanding and pretty cool as a whole. The people are great in the industry. The fans are great. After parties are great. You know how it is. The Comic Cons are great. It's a really cool, fun, laid back industry.
Yeah. So again, I was on your Instagram, right? And that's what I was like looking at. And
Hey,
I
it's
came
a good source of
across
stuff.
this photo. So a couple
Oh.
of things. So this is a photo that you said that somebody had tattooed a piece of your art on them. So I wanted to know what this
Mhm.
was. And then have
Okay.
you ever actually had someone specifically ask you for a tattoo design?
Oh, all the time. All the time. To this day. And I don't treat tattoo designs any differently than a commission. Um, in fact, if they just want a tattoo design, it's basically I treat it as if it's a commission. I'll draw it for them
mm,
and I'll
Mm-hmm.
give it to them, and they can take it to whatever tattoo artist to do it. I don't care.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the designs I drew uh, for a gentleman out in South Dakota actually won me a second place trophy or something. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. So he got the tattoo of what I drew for him, which was like Batman and Princess Zelda and Mega Man, whatever. It's like a big
oh wow.
mashup, like a sleeve.
That's amazing.
And he entered it. He entered his tattoo that I drew
Wow.
in a contest. And 1 year, or back in 2023, he actually presented me with this because they present the person who got the tattoo and for the tattoo artist.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's
That's
pretty cool. It
great.
says SuperCon, Marvel DC's second place. I mean,
That
it's
is
totally
amazing.
surprised. So I thought, that's pretty cool. So yeah, as far as that skull design, here, let me get this for you. Give me one moment here. Are you guys familiar with wrestling? Do you guys follow wrestling at all?
I really don't follow it. Never have been.
Okay.
Never has been my thing.
Well, so I'm friends with one of the WWE wrestlers. His name is Tommaso
Okay.
Ciampa. Like you could see him like every week on TV somewhere.
Yeah.
So back, you can see a little bit of it here. This is back in 2020, I believe. So that skull is actually his original logo, and you can see me wearing the shirt with that
Huh.
Okay.
logo, that skull
Yeah.
design.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
black that was his moniker, during that
Okay. Wow.
part.
Huh.
And so that's where that came from. So the person that got that tattoo was a huge fan of Tommaso, and I was the guy
Gotcha.
that designed that logo. And this outfit that he's wearing, that long overcoat right here,
Mm-hmm.
I designed that too.
Oh
So it's
wow.
got like
Oh.
a cool snake skin like texture, So it's called his ring gear. So I designed his
Mm-hmm.
original ring gear as well. So that's how that came about.
Okay. That's pretty impressive. Did not expect that.
Yeah. So I mean, I have a portfolio that's kind of spread out. I got comics, I got
Right.
TV shows, I got wrestling and everything, and
Photography. All kinds of stuff.
photography. So whoever
Wow.
wants to hire me,
Yeah. So the kind of last question I got on the list, and this is something I tend to ask almost every guest we have on here. But if you could pick any superpower in real life to have, what would it be?
stop time. Because you stop time, you can do
Ooh.
anything. You can do
Yes.
anything. Because stopping time now, my caveat is like, well, as long as I don't age, I can stop while time is stopped,
Right.
my aging stops
Right.
temporarily for that time.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, what's the point? Because then you just look like you age faster to everyone
Right.
else when you stop.
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
also want
But
to stop
stopping,
time with like somebody so you could
yeah,
travel
yeah,
with them or do things?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because stop time, essentially, you're extending your life and experiences.
Yeah.
First of all, if you stop time, I could like, uh, I can rob a bank. I can hijack a plane and go to Egypt for vacation. I mean, you could literally
Right.
do anything when you stop time,
Limitless.
but
Oh
you
my
won't
God.
waste time. But you won't
Yeah.
waste time. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
To
Yeah.
everyone else, it's the blink of an eye. I could deadlines. I can meet deadlines. Like, let's say like I only
Yeah.
have an hour, but I have to draw 10 pages. Well, let me stop time until I'm done, and I met the
Yeah.
deadline.
Well, that's the thing too, like
Like you could
traveling
do.
experiences, like you do like just between driving and flying, you waste so much time. If you could just cut
That's the
those
thing.
moments out, there's so much more you could
Yep.
do. Oh my.
Yeah, you don't have to
Yeah,
stress about it. I can travel the world and stop time. I
that's
mean, I
good.
just have to get to the location, then I can unfreeze time and just
Right.
enjoy, like living,
Right.
and people moving about and stuff like that.
I
But
mean,
just the travel time alone.
yeah, you could probably gain at least like a third more in life just by cutting out your
At
travel
least,
time.
at least you never have to worry about being poor or homeless.
Yeah.
Even if you're broke and you lose your home, I could stop time and just squat somewhere, like scenic. Seriously,
Right.
like
Yeah.
you could
Yeah.
literally do
This makes
anything. You
sense.
could do anything when you
That's
stop time.
incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would
yeah.
have never have thought about that. Like I'm always like, I want
I
to
want to
fly
like
so I
fly,
can
yeah,
zoom there.
fly
Yeah,
or have super
Yeah.
exactly.
strength. No, no, you don't need flight if you can stop time. You don't need super strength when you can stop time. Because
Mm.
I could stop time and defend myself and just knock a person out because they're frozen, or I could
Yeah.
I could fight an army.
This is true.
Yeah. This is
Yeah,
true.
Wow.
This is very
Yeah.
true.
Well,
yeah.
I think that wraps us up on our questions. I know you kind of told us about our all your con appearances this coming year, but you have any other self promotion or plugging in you want to do?
Oh, that's a good question. So, my partner Keith Champagne, he's got a really cool name. He's also a fellow DC veteran, and we have a creator-owned book called The Switch. Now, the first book came out like 6 years ago or something like that. We are currently wrapping up on the second issue, and the Kickstarter has been launched earlier this month. It met its funding goal, but we want to get the stretch goals, just kind of
Mhm.
pad it.
Hmm.
And we have about starting tomorrow. I think we have 1 week left of the campaign, so I'd like to promote that.
Okay.
It's a cool book. I mean, it's the book that I can say that's truly my own characters. I don't have to cut a piece to corporate or anything like that. Marvel,
Nice.
DC, and yeah, we'd like to get it in more people's hands. So it's a cool superhero book that explores the relationship between these wacky characters, these villains, centered around this particular female villain who decides that she wants to stop being a villain and wants to change her life and do good.
Oh,
The
okay.
problem is the problem is that you can't just stop and do good because there's consequences for the crimes you have already committed as a
Right.
Right.
villain. And on top of that, she was part of a gang. So I think, typically if you want to leave a gang, then they want to try to kill you or something. So
Right.
she's got to
Right.
deal with all that stuff. So the only way she can start living a new life is through another secret identity as a hero. And
Okay.
eventually you can kind of, figure out that somewhere along the line, people start figuring out who she is,
Right.
and then all hell breaks
Mm.
loose. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
That
the
sounds
story that
fun.
we're continuing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really fun book. Yeah, you should check it out. But that's what we're working on. It's called The Switch. I think this one is called Electricia, which is the villain, the main character villain of The Switch. The Switch has a kind of a double meaning. You're switching sides, but the Switch is also the name of a superhero that's the identity she takes on, called the
Ah.
Switch.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
that's
So
really cool.
it has to deal with electricity, like a flipping
Right.
a
Like a
switch
flip
and stuff.
switch. Yeah.
So
I like
yep,
that.
yep, yep.
I like that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
But
but
So yeah, I think
thank
other
you
than
so
that,
much.
yep, that's my main project. Yeah.
heck yeah. Well, if anybody wants to find you, we'll make sure your social tags are in the comments or in the description box. We'll put your website in there. If you can
Oh,
shoot me
thanks.
the link for what you were just talking about for
The
that
Kickstarter,
the
yeah.
Kickstarter. We'll
Oh,
throw
the
the
Kickstarter. Yeah,
Kickstarter link
I'll
in there
do
too
that.
for anybody
Sign it
watching
off.
this
That'd be
that
great.
wants
I
to help.
appreciate that,
So
guys.
yeah,
I really appreciate that.
no problem. And once again, man, thank you for taking your time out and doing this. And we'll be releasing this episode Tuesday. So
Yeah.
Alrighty.
yeah.
Nice.
All right, we'll
You
catch you
guys
later.
work fast.
Yeah, we do. All right, see ya.
Thank you.
Bye.